Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Today, I am so blessed to welcome a wonderful guest, Ellen Postolowski. She is going to give you such valuable insight, the stuff that you wished your parents would have taught you or you wish you would have learned in school, so that you can take care of your most valuable asset. What is that, you ask? It's you. So, we're going to learn so much from Ellen today. But before we begin, I want to take just a quick moment to hear from our sponsor, which is Limitless You, which is also Brad and I. So, I'm Yvonne Trost, and my journey from spending over 25 years climbing the corporate ladder to co founding Limitless You with Brad Chandler began with a discovery: how to let go of the fear of the unknown. So if you're like me and you feel like you're chasing abundance at work, or you're chasing it at home, or you think that you got it good, but you're just not quite happy, and everything that you really want seems to always be out of reach, the next thing, but it's never enough. Well, at Limitless You, we're committed to guiding business owners and executives just like you through the journey of uncovering and conquering the subconscious beliefs you might not even know you have that are holding you back. So, our mission is to help you transform not just your business, but your entire life, achieving both personal and financial abundance. So, whether you're feeling overwhelmed by business chaos, constant overworking, perpetual racing mind, these aren't just stress systems, they are signals of deeper issues that, once resolved, you can unlock your limitless potential. So, join us at Limitless You. We combine innovative neuroscience and compassionate coaching to create real, lasting change. And we're going to get started by learning more today with Ellen, right? We're going to learn about human being 101. So we're going to listen today to Ellen. We're going to learn a few things. And if you want more change, you can see either if you're watching, you can see it in the banner, or I'll let you know. You'll visit us at unlocklimitlessyou.com, or you can visit Ellen at Chef Ellen. So let's go ahead and get started and welcome our incredible guest. Ellen, on our show, we like to come right out of the gate with a thoughtful conversation that's going to provide our listeners with valuable insight that they can put to use in their life right away. So I'm not going to waste another minute because I want to hear what you have to say. Let's start talking about, why is it so important to integrate mind and body? So I want you to start discussing and sharing, like, what's the importance of this mind body connection that people keep talking about to help us achieve not just physical wellness, but mental wellness that's going to help us find our happiness within.
Well, thank you for having me today, Yvonne. I appreciate the invite. Um, First off, I think that any good discussion starts with a connection. And I work with my clients as a health coach. Um, I was a private chef for over 30 years and nutrition based. So I was always coaching my clients on the importance of good food in their bodies. And I decided, so like I said, the when I start a conversation with someone, it's to make a connection. And I think that once we make that connection, we are able to open up more. We trust each
Mhm.
other more. So getting my clients to open up more is a big thing. And the way that I do that is I usually start with my story. And my story is that about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe osteoporosis at 51. And in that time, I had started to shift my career away from cooking all the time. And I went back to school for integrative nutrition because as I got older, I wanted to get out of the kitchen and I really craved that change. So I'm very grateful that I listened to myself and, or listened to that inner voice that said, you need to make a change. And when I was in school, I was really getting into that mind body connection, which was I was being taught, and I realized that in that process, I was really out of sync with myself. So I thought that sure I eat right and I exercise every day, but that wasn't enough. And
Right.
with my diagnosis, I went to a lot of different doctors. And what I found out initially is that we tend to treat acute and chronic disease um, with meds right off the
Mhm.
bat, long-term meds. And I wasn't ready for that. I needed more answers. And so when I talk to my clients, um, I want to encourage them to open up more and to listen to the fact that it's not just about the food on our plates. Like we call it the food on our plates, the food off of our plates, what nourishes your life, what makes you happy in your life besides just the food that nourishes you and energizing you is very important, but also establishing a mind body connection, seeing if you're off balance, seeing if you're normalizing symptoms that might be holding you back. Like you could have you could be not sleeping well, you could be bloated. These are all symptoms we tend to normalize. That could mean something more in our bodies. So I remember once, and I tell people this a lot. A doctor had written in my portal, "Ellen is very anxious," and I was upset because, firstly, I thought I was hiding it really well. So to me, it meant that I was literally busting at the seams. So I needed to do some soul searching, but I did take that message as a gift. And I didn't want to be perceived as somebody that was so anxious. So I knew I had some work to do, and I was in the perfect environment to do so when I was back in school. So when I tell this story, um, I think it's because I want, I can relate to the frustrations of feeling out of balance. I did that a long time ago, but I want someone, when you're doing, you think that you're doing all of these things right and you're still unhappy. Um, it's important to start opening up and realizing that you can make some changes. Because when you start to feel better, it's such an amazing gift that you give yourself, like health advocacy.
Yeah, so what advice, because I hear what you're saying, and quite often, we are focusing on our mind separately, or we're focusing on our body separately. Like, I wasn't taught as a child how they impacted each other, right? Like,
No.
even let's throw in spirit, right? Mind, body, spirit connection. So a lot of times, to your point, you'll go to a doctor and they'll give you medicine, or you'll go to a therapist and they'll just talk to you, and most likely they're just going to do talk therapy with your neocortex, which is only like 5% in charge by the time you're 35. So we try and compartmentalize the human being, but that's not really possible. So I think that I'd like to hear what your advice is for individuals who maybe haven't quite made the connection. Maybe they don't even believe what we're talking about, but they also struggle with food related issues. And no matter what they do, they haven't been able to kick it, whether it's emotional eating, right?
Mhm.
Or they diet and then binge, or they lose weight and then they gain weight. So let's play the devil's advocate here, and let's talk to somebody. Let's imagine we're talking to a listener that doesn't believe in this mind body connection. They don't think that the gut has anything to do with it, with their emotional issues. Can you help the listener understand how what they put in their mouth that goes into their stomach can impact their mind and vice versa?
Sure. So, the one of the so I will somebody that is not knowing that, you need to educate that person a little bit more. I never knew. Like I can relate to you on so many levels, but when I learned that we actually have this connection, and we hear now the gut brain connection all the time. We have a vagus nerve, which is the one of the longest running sensory nerves in our body, and it connects our gut to our brain. So it's this bidirectional highway of communication. Um, Stress is a big factor in throwing that off. And I tell people to imagine like a wheel that should just be turning flawlessly. But, as life has it, our life is not perfect. So things happen. We have stress, we have situations, we have work, um, our relationships, even the food we eat will throw that off. It is like one of the major communicators of hormonal activity in our body. So I will provide somebody with that science to understand it better. And it's still, I think, like, giving someone science, and I can get very geeky and I can like really geek out on the science part of it. But I think like talking about it um, is a big factor too. Like, I think we're in a time of overload with diets and with fads and influencer culture, especially. And with this abundance of information and conflicting diet trends, like,
Yeah.
I hear the conflict all the time, but somebody told me to do this and somebody told me to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, stop listening to everybody else. We're going to find out what works for you specifically, because you and I, our physiologies are as unique as the next person. And what might work for you might not work for somebody else. So, to understand that the wellness industry is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there is just, life-changing promotions out there all the time that's going to suck you into spending a lot of money. And a lot of this has limited research, and um, there's like really limited information to back a lot of these claims. So, like, let's get back to basics. Let's understand the science behind how, from the minute that you start cooking food on the counter, like, your digestive enzymes are starting to work, like, before you even put the food in your mouth. And that's why I talk a lot about cooking at home, um, having those like senses, because you can order food, you can take out food, but you're skipping a whole step with those vital digestive enzymes. So the minute you start preparing, and then you um, eat that food, you're nourishing cells. And I don't want to say there's a right or wrong food, but there's better choices with food. There are inflammatory choices, and then there are better choices that will actually nourish your cells, and they will get rid of the inflammation, because a lot of us are walking around with a lot of inflammation. So we get inflammation from food choices that will impact our vagus nerve. And then from there, it'll impact our cognitive functions. And then we're like anxious all the time. And I remember, like, when I talk about that, the fact that somebody had written in my portal, Ellen is very anxious, like, I just didn't want to be perceived as somebody that was anxious. So that one size fits all mentality can be very harmful.
Yeah, I love that. So I want the listeners, if you're listening, like, and you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking, right? Was probably Ellen's right. Like, oh my God, every time I read, I think I got something figured it out. And then the next thing I read completely contradicts it. And I'm
Yeah,
like, crap.
all the
Which
time.
which which one is which? And so what I love that Ellen just said, and it's so true, like, if somebody is saying this is the only way or this is definitely the right thing, you should run. Because when it comes to human beings, right, we are so individual and unique that there is not a complete one size fits all. Is there a general rule of thumb for certain things? Absolutely. But you want to find somebody, either you need to spend a lot of time studying the human being and studying your particular instance of the human being, or you need to find people you can trust that understand how you might work and want to learn more about you specifically and can tailor things to you. So, that's what Ellen is mentioning. That's what we do at Limitless You, right? We want to know the real you. And a lot of times, just like Ellen said, I didn't even know the real me. Ellen probably didn't even know the real her. That's why she was anxious, right, Ellen?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so start getting curious, and if you're like, "How do I even know?"
yeah,
I'm gonna put it up here. You guys can see it if you're watching, or I'll just tell you. We have this really cool quiz. It's at unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. It's only 12 questions, 3 minutes, but it asks you about your way of being, both with yourself and with others. So just like Ellen was saying, right? We tend to normalize things, right? So if you are judgmental, or if you are anxious, or if you have a hard time being in a deeply connected relationship, like Ellen said, I agree with her. Like, life is all about connection. that is quote unquote normal, but normal isn't necessarily healthy. So do yourself a favor, take 5 minutes, go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz. You're going to learn a lot of things about yourself. And perhaps you'll start to see, like, maybe I need to pull the thread on this, because the good news is if you find something, that means there's opportunity for greater growth and greater happiness. So we want to start with, Ellen, your thoughts here. Say they take the quiz, or they start learning about their gut health, or they Google vagus nerve and all this stuff. And again, now I'm overwhelmed again, right? With all the stuff that I have to figure out. So can you just give some advice where people, like, what are the key elements for maintaining consistency and accountability in a healthy lifestyle based upon your experience and research?
Well, you hit I think first off, you have to commit to helping yourself heal. And I want my clients to be ready. I'm like, I need you to be mostly in. Like,
Yeah.
nobody can be all in. Healing takes time, and it's a conscious effort. So consistency is a key word there. And so in my book, I came up with a roadmap, and I developed a program.
Which
There's
she
my
has right here, gut
book.
driven.
And it's called the Reset 90/10 program. And it's a carefully curated program, and it follows functional medicine protocols, which there's a protocol called the 4 R's protocol. And that is remove, replace, reinoculate, and repair. So with the help of, in my journey, with the help of finally the wonderful doctors that I met along the way, and it took time, and it is frustrating, but like, I think, like, with the proper mindset, and the mindset that wants to age well and to heal and to feel good and not be anxious, um, you know, it takes time, but like, there are people out there that will educate you and that will listen to you. And so um, my whole thing was, I want to guide, and as a health coach, I'm there to guide and empower my clients.
Right.
And in the book, I guide the 3-week program jumpstarts the healing process, and I call it 90/10 because I say, if you can be good, if you can, like, adhere to the guidelines for 90% of the time, and that 10% is for a little 10% of wiggle room and life's unpredictability, you'll learn so much more about what makes you feel your best. Um, so that said, accountability is also a crucial keyword. And I try to be that accountability coach for my clients. And I came up with the book, after working with clients for so long, I wanted to put it into a book format. And I spent a lot of time outlining it, and, trying to get everything lined up so that it was almost as if you were reading, felt like I was talking to you in the book. I also just recently launched an online program um, and I spent a lot of time on that, because when I want to help people, not everybody can afford a health coach, and people look at it as a luxury item, but it's really somebody that will help guide you, somebody that will empower you. So with this online program, I'm almost your virtual cheerleader. Keeps you daily, gives you daily inspiration and emails and engagement. Um, so I know that my story is just a chapter in the book, but it's really what charged me to, like, find the answers and create a ripple effect for other people of material and knowledge. And I think that's really helpful and needed to help one advocate for their best health. And, we want to facilitate progress. We want to become more aware of what works for our unique situation and whatever goals that you have. But the consistency is very important, because, we all have to do the work. It's a journey, but, like, it is a very rewarding journey.
So I heard consistency and accountability, right?
Mhm.
And if you're having difficulties with things like that, seek out somebody that you trust.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I would say that's just so fascinating about the human being, a lot of the times when people have problems with consistency or they have problems with accountability for doing something that's good for them, right? They're like, well, why? I know what to do, but why can't I embody it? Why can't I stay consistent? Why can't I do what's right for me? What we've discovered, right, working with almost 100 clients, and our mentors have worked with thousands all across the globe, is that it comes down to some limiting belief in their subconscious mind of that thinking that they're not enough,
Hmm.
right? So you mentioned like, you have to make the investment in yourself. We make the investment in all these things external to us: cars, clothes, homes, all of these things. But yet we don't prioritize our own being. And what we found is quite often it's because people don't know and believe that their authentic self is enough and that that's what's going to keep them in a tribe, if you will. So as human beings, right? We're tribal people. Like we haven't been in tribes for a while and now we're really disconnected. And so then that's why we seek all these things externally. So if you're having problems with accountability, if you're having problems with consistency, just know that you're not alone and it's not your fault. It's just your subconscious mind, right? It believes like if you're overeating, like you're emotional eating, right? If you're drinking too much, if you're not taking care of your health, most likely that's your subconscious mind's solution to something it fears is worse. And you're like, "What? How does that even make sense?" Right? For me, it was I would overeat, and usually it would be sweets because that reminded me of my grandma, and I would feel her love, and I would always feel unconditionally loved and accepted, right? Or if I felt like I'm dragging today, or as a single mom, responsible for everything for her 2 kids, right? I need Starbucks. I need to go get some caffeine. I need some support, right? But it actually doesn't help me. But my subconscious mind thinks it does, right? So when Ellen and I are talking about this mind body connection, it's fascinating what our mind will do, right? Why would putting food in my mouth make me feel better, Ellen? Why would drinking make me feel better? Like people, I think, would love to know, like from your perspective, what's going on chemically and how do they break out of that and be like, oh, actually, that doesn't help me. That harms my body when I have another glass of wine.
Well, we all have our coping mechanisms, right? I can relate to the sugar addict because I'm a former one. But any sort of stressful, for as well as I eat, and all the good food that I buy, um, years ago, it was so normal for me to, if I got stressed out, like I would reach for Twizzlers were my choice candy. And um, I didn't think anything was wrong with that until I started, until like, and I say the dam will break. You can normalize things for only so long and you can put up with um, different symptoms. And I talk a lot about that in the book. But when my health went south, it was like one thing after another. You're not, I mean, you're creating more inflammation in your body. You're creating more inflammation in your brain. And when you start to make these small changes, and I talk a lot about, because I've worked with I've worked with people that will tell me right off the bat, I will self-sabotage this, and I will do well until something happens, and I'll go back to my old ways. And so there's a lot of trauma in,
Mhm.
I think most people do have trauma. A lot, they say that most small intestinal bacteria overgrowth is caused by trauma too. There's a lot of research coming out about that, which I find fascinating. And that's when there's like an imbalance of good to bad bacteria in your body. And I mean, anything will cause that. Stress causes it. One food poisoning incident in your life, there could be, you're not digesting your food properly, you're not chewing it properly. So I think when you learn more about these things, and I really try to focus on progress and not perfection, because I think that when many of us who have been on this like yo-yo dieting and reading information, and you find you want to try something, you do really well, and all of a sudden you get like it doesn't work out the way that you want to, you might lose a couple of pounds. And um, I really try to emphasize that it's so much more than weight. When your
Yeah.
energy levels improve, and you have inflammation in your arm, like chronic, and all of a sudden it disappears, and you're sleeping better throughout the night. There's so many more rewards than, and the weight kind of just comes off after you start getting rid of the inflammation. So when you're taking care of your body and you're doing something good for it, and you make these small, and I really emphasize like celebrating small victories, like having more energy and feeling better and sleeping throughout the night and being less anxious, because that over time will add up more. And people get very inspired by those small changes where and I go back to that normalizing, where they don't realize how much they've just normalized those symptoms, or taken it for granted, or whatever it is. But um, there's a time and a place also for like as a health coach, like I don't come up with the diet plans. I'm there to just guide somebody, and I talk a lot about food and the way that it's processed through our bodies, and what are the most healing foods. And um, so I can go off from this subject about emotional support, and why everything is so becomes so emotional. Um, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I've found out, which fascinates me, is that most people just want somebody to listen to them, and
Yeah.
to talk to them, and to make them feel like they're not alone. And when you start opening up and you start making that connection, this goes back to like your first question. Um, you read things and you're like, wow, that's, even if you read it in the book, or you and I have a session together, we're making a connection, and you realize like, wow, this is just not normal the way that I'm feeling. So we have all these processes, and our body is really wants to heal, but it needs your help. Um,
Let me ask you this, because we only have a few minutes left. If say I'm busy, I'm a busy entrepreneur, and
mhm.
I am going to read your book, but I'm not quite there yet, right?
Okay.
And I'm on social media and I see all these like kits for what are the foods for you and what causes inflammation and what doesn't cause inflammation. And say I want just something super quick to decrease inflammation. Like I just want, like you said, I want to celebrate small wins. So our listeners are very busy. What are just like two things that they should start doing today that they can do very easily to decrease inflammation and then take notice? To your point of, guys, don't just do everything everybody tells you. Try something, apply it in your life, and then does this work for me? And then tweak it from there. But what are two things that our listeners could start doing today to decrease inflammation? Because we know inflammation causes disease, which causes disease, and we don't want that. So what can they do?
I would There's so many things I would love to say, but the first thing that comes into my head is to try to um, look more at what foods you're eating. Try to cook more at home, because you can control those ingredients. And there's so many apps now, like where you can like look at a food that you're buying and you can get a rating on it. One of the ones that come to mind right away is it's called Yuka. It's Yuka. Um, it's like having somebody next to you that says, maybe you should put this aside because it's not coming up ranking very high, but here's like other suggestions, because that's what it'll give you. So if we focus more, and what I really focus more on mostly in the book is whole intact fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and ways to, in the book, there's over 100 recipes, that, because I'm trying to get more plants into your diet, because plants help feed our microbes, keeps our microbiome healthy. It actually heal the lining of our stomach and our gut, which is really important. So one, I would say, look at the food that you're eating. And the second thing is stress. I think stress is a major contributor to inflammation in our bodies. And if you could find a way to alleviate that stress, and we can't get rid of stress, like it's just impossible, but we can find ways to calm our vagus nerve. I mean, there's so many videos out there, on YouTube. One of the best ways to actually just distract your mind and stop thinking about, all the terrible things that are going on in your head, or the things that we worry about the most, is to start humming, because that'll like calm our vagus nerve right away. So becoming like more mindful, and even if it's a 10-minute meditation, because you can bring up so many things on YouTube, half the time I listen to it in the car if I'm stressed out, because it's
Yeah.
the one thing that I still, after 8 years, struggle with, is how to manage my stress and how to like keep it at bay. But even a deep breath, inhale and exhale and take a deep breath and hold it for a couple seconds. There's so many apps that are available now but I would say stress and food, off the top of my head. I would love to talk about 10 other things, but
Well, we'll
sleep.
have to do it again. We'll have
Yeah.
to do it again next time, but I think that's great. Plants on your plate, right?
Yeah.
That's really easy to do. Whole plants on your plate, ideally cooked at home. And what I love that you brought up has nothing to do necessarily with food. It goes back to stress. So a lot of entrepreneurs think that stress is their edge. The racing mind is their edge. And what we've been talking a lot about is it's also your entrepreneurial early grave. So if you're a senior executive, or if you're an entrepreneur and you think, I need the stress, you actually don't need the stress. You're going to be more creative and more powerful to attract the abundance at work and at home if you can come from a stable, creative, peaceful place. And that's also going to help you make better decisions on what you put on your plate when you're at peace. So,
Absolutely.
so you are your most valuable asset. Get Ellen's book. It's called Gut Driven. And also, if you want just some nice things to help you calm yourself, to figure out how do I regenerate my joy when I'm stressed out, if you go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/resources, we have a joy regenerator. We have how do you find out if you have limiting beliefs? We have the quiz. We have all of that stuff that's free for you. So it doesn't take long to do. It is time to invest in your most valuable asset, which is you. So if you're suffering, you do not have to. It does not take years. It does not take months. It actually can happen in a matter of hours to unlock what's going on in your subconscious mind. So whether you work with myself or Brad at Limitless You, or you reach out to Ellen at chefellen.com, start by putting yourself first. Self-health first is not selfish. It's selfish not to do it because the world doesn't get the best you. So, Ellen, thank you so much for your time and your sage advice today. I know that the audience has gotten so much out of this. So, until next time, my dear listeners, we are on a mission to help at least 1 million people, but we can't do it alone. We've got Ellen now on the team, right? We're all trying to help everybody so we can make this world a better place for all of us. And we need your help. So if you're watching or if you're listening to this and you know somebody that is suffering, please share it with them. If you don't want to share it or you don't have time to, just rate it. Anything you can do to get this word out there so people can start learning about the human being that they are is great, because that's how we're going to increase happiness. So until next time, may the light in me honor the light in you so that we all can shine brighter.